Three Colors Blue is a film that came out in 1993 that's written and directed by Krzysztof Kieslowski. So Three Colors Blue is actually this week's Patreon poll winner. And if you want to vote in these weekly polls, $1 a month on Patreon, $5 will get you access to the Discord. And Three Colors Blue actually barely won. Dragged Across Concrete by Craig Zoller actually gave it a run for its money. Three Colors Blue only won by 1 vote. So that was kind of shocking. But either way, I was really satisfied with Three Colors Blue winning because the whole trilogy in general are films that I've been really wanting to see for quite some time. But I wanted to see Three Colors Blue first. To be honest, mostly because Juliette Binoche is in the film, and she's just delightful. And I pretty much heard nothing but glowing things about this film. And so my expectations of this film were a bit high. But after watching Three Colors Blue, I mean, this is a film that I can easily say that I loved. And I think it's just wonderful filmmaking. And honestly has a nice handful of moments that I found to be quite breathtaking. But firstly, let me just note that this film has kind of been talked to death by a lot of film critics. So I apologize if I'm not really offering anything fresh or new on this film. But I'm going to do my best to kind of just give you my experience of the film in terms of like what I personally took away from it. But it wasn't until after I watched Three Colors Blue that I learned that the trilogy was based on the colors of the French flag. I mean, I know that the colors of the French flag are red, white, and blue, but for some reason my dumb brain didn't really make that connection. But what I read was that the colors of the French flag represent the values of the French Revolution, and in this case with blue, it represents liberty. And I was honestly kind of conflicted when I read that information because, honestly, after watching Three Colors Blue, liberty wasn't really the first thing that came to mind. It was honestly kind of the last thing that came to my mind after watching the film. But after thinking more about it, it made me appreciate the film even more than I already did, and I already really admired the film quite a bit. But it kind of added another layer of thematic complexity to the film, and I think it allowed me to understand and think about the film in a more deeper and insightful way. But I'll talk more about the symbolism and the thematic conveyances in this film a little bit later. But first of all, we kind of have to talk about the filmmaking of this film in general, because the filmmaking is definitely what makes this film. I know that's kind of an odd thing to say, but what I mean by that is like the personality behind the camera and the vision and the creativity that was poured into this film is definitely what makes it a powerful and thought-provoking experience, because this film takes its artistic liberties, and a lot of them I thought were just quite brilliant in a lot of different ways. There's some that I have some reservations about that I'll get to in a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's the way that Kieslowski went about presenting this film in his own delicate way that is really what makes this film a special experience. First and foremost, we do have to talk about the music in this film, because music plays a huge part in this film. I mean, it's something that's integral to the narrative as well. But the music in this film, not only is it interesting the way it's used in the narrative, but the way that the musical score is incorporated in the film is incredibly creative and definitely had me thinking about it for quite some time. And I think at the time this film came out, had a lot of people talking about it because it's used in a way that kind of blurs the line between non-diegetic and diegetic. And what I mean by that is that the musical score and the music that you hear in the film, it's not like you hear it within the film's natural setting. Like, there's no music actually going on within the film's story. It's a musical score that the filmmaker intentionally put in as a way to enhance or express some sort of point or elevate a certain emotion. But it's basically just music that's put by the filmmaker to express some sort of creative point. And most of the time when this orchestrated musical score is used in the film, it's kind of inserted in this rather abrupt way. And the main character, especially the first scene that they actually decide to do this, the main character is legitimately startled by the abrupt orchestrated music in the same way that I think a lot of the audience members were startled by the music. And it's one of the many aspects of the film that I think makes it quite unique, but it also makes it to where it's interpretive and really makes you think where exactly is this music coming from and what purpose is this really serving for the film's themes and approach. And for me, I interpret it as something that's psychological. I feel like that whenever the main character and the audience both hear that music, she's experiencing perhaps an epiphany, or she's having an emotional realization of some kind, or also perhaps a past memory that's haunting her at the current moment. And I really dug that, because not only do I feel like it's artful and ambiguous, but I feel like it made for a much more personal and intimate experience. But I will say that there are a few moments where certain artistic liberties are taken, where there's a stylistic choice of having the abrupt orchestrated music come in, and then the scene will fade to black, and it kind of makes you think that it's going to transition to the next scene, but then it fades back in and we're at the same exact spot as we were before, and then the music kind of just cuts off. And I think a few times it works, but then there were other moments to where it just didn't really work for me. And I mean, I understand that it was attempting to be profound, and I do admire that it's being artful, but I just don't think it fully worked for me all the way. But even besides the music in this film, which I was mostly really impressed by, just the aesthetic value of this film was absolutely incredible. Especially with the cinematography and the direction of the camera work is absolutely stunning and beautiful stuff. This film is basically framed to perfection from start to finish. This is a breathtaking film to look at. And it's not just framed beautifully from start to finish, but just the use of lighting also from the entirety of this film is absolutely stunning. And obviously I expected for there to be a lot of blue lighting in this film, but I was a little worried that a lot of the blue lighting was gonna feel a bit artificial, in the sense that it didn't feel natural to the film's world. And I was really impressed that I was wrong, because a lot of the lighting in this film, a lot of the blue lighting that's obviously apparent here, feels incredibly natural to the atmosphere and the setting. He's able to utilize natural things like moonlight and a swimming pool scene that's a reoccurring scene throughout this film, blue objects throughout this film that reflect light, that not only enhanced the aesthetic value of the film in terms of the way it looks, but obviously it all has its own thematic and symbolic meaning as well. So in terms of presentation, this film is astronomically great. It's really inspiring and truly reminds me of what it is that I love about the art of filmmaking. So truly beautiful stuff there. So returning back to what I mentioned at the beginning of this video in regards to the blue portion of the French flag representing liberty, as I mentioned, it was something that didn't really quite click with me when I learned that information, because what I mostly thought about when I was watching this entire film was how kind of bound and helpless that this main character was due to her having to deal with devastating trauma of losing her entire family, and just to see her having to deal with that level of grief and loss and trying to cope with a new way of life didn't really seem that liberating. But after thinking more about it, I think I do kind of see where liberty falls into this film, because even though it's incredibly difficult for her to cope with her new life without her family, the kind of responsibilities and obligations that she was bound by pre the travesty is no longer there. So she's basically free to do whatever the hell she wants, but obviously it's not that simple, because again, it's nearly impossible to just let go of all the emotional investment and everything that you poured your heart and soul into prior to that, and just let go of all that and just start living a new life. That's just not how the human brain works. It's a lot more complex than that. And throughout his entire film, I feel like she's trying to just push through all the pain and suffering and evolve from physical liberty to a more mental and spiritual liberty. And that's one of the many reasons why I love the color blue for this film, because the color blue is kind of one of the more complex colors in terms of symbolism, because blue conventionally represents sadness and depression, but at the same time can also represent stability, confidence, and sincerity. And that's why I think it's an excellent color choice for this film, because I feel like one of the themes that this film is trying to express is the complexity of human emotion and life in general, and especially in regards to grief and tragedy and depression. But there's also kind of another sub-theme to this film that I enjoyed its demonstration of, and it basically has to do with the tendency for human beings to feel entitled to other people's art. And there's a particular scene in this film where a certain character just does something with somebody else's art, and it frustrated me beyond no end, because it really doesn't matter how touching or moving you think a certain art piece is. If that person doesn't want it to be released to anybody but themselves, they should have full rights to do that. Because at the end of the day, I think there's a pretty fair debate to be had between which one you think is more selfish. The one who wants to keep his art or her art more private and to themselves, or the one that wants to just take it and share it with the world regardless of your feelings. And I think the ending to this film is really well presented. I think that a lot of people will find it to be quite powerful stuff, because it's presented in basically this montage type setup, and the way that opera music is used and the lyrics that are being expressed through that entire segment, and just the way it's showing the individual lives of all these people that were associated with the main characters' lives, just hits a really profound point home. And again, it's really interpretive, and I can see a lot of people find quite moving. So I really enjoyed the ending to this film. It was more abrupt than I expected, but it definitely left me on a note that I was satisfied with and found quite thought-provoking in a lot of ways. So I'm going to give 3 Colors Blue a soft 9 out of 10. I truly can't wait to watch the rest of the trilogy. I heard 3 Colors Red is an absolute masterpiece, so I'm really looking forward to that. I heard a lot of people sleep on 3 Colors White, so there's a good chance that I might be in love with that film as well. But yeah, that's all I got to say about 3 Colors Blue. If you really enjoy what I had to say about the film, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.